As of the time I'm making this, Chainsaw Man has gone on a 2-week break, and the most recently released chapter, 187, has ended on a pretty good cliffhanger. The fight against the aging devil doesn't seem like it's going to be stopping anytime soon now, despite Denji being in a position where he can help Poach to continue to fight by healing his injuries over and over again from afar. It's looking like brute force will not be what defeats the aging devil, and as a result, another solution to neutralize the threat is needed. With the chapter concluding on Denji trying to make himself throw up, his body connected to Pochta's in the real world while Denji is trapped in the aging devil's pocket dimension, Fujimoto seems to be setting up the idea that the chainsaw devil will be vomiting up a certain concept that it has eaten at a certain point, bringing it back into the world and acting as something that can potentially defeat the aging devil, which, as the title of this video suggests, begs the question of what will Denji vomit up? What concept has been erased by Chainsaw Man eating its devil, and what can be spontaneously brought back from non-existence to help the duo in their fight? Before I go over the possible concepts that Chainsaw Man could vomit up and bring back into existence, let's briefly go over the basics of Chainsaw Man's erasure power and what we know about it. In Chapter 84 of Chainsaw Man, Makima introduces us to the idea of Chainsaw Man's true ability. Any devil that the Chainsaw Devil eats has their name erased from existence, which in turn erases the devil and the very concept of that thing from the universe and everybody's knowledge. Within the last few chapters, we've gotten a general idea of what happens right after Chainsaw Man eats a concept, mainly that the universe lazily corrects to accommodate for the sudden non-existence of that concept. Like when Chainsaw Man ate the ear devil, everything related to ears didn't stop existing. Cell phones still existed and whatnot and everything, but people couldn't hear each other and they had no memory whatsoever of a time when ears were a thing. And when the aging devil was able to get Chainsaw Man to vomit up the ear devil spontaneously, ears came back into existence, but nobody had any memory of the brief period of time in which ears were no longer a thing. Yet transcripts and documents that detailed as such did still exist. In regards to Chainsaw Man closing in on the aging devil's location and what he would need in the moment when he's right beside the aging devil to possibly defeat him, this lazy and at times inconsistent approach to things spawning in and out of existence arguably presents the idea that a concept remanifesting into existence because Chainsaw Man vomited it up wouldn't necessarily spawn that object in front of Chainsaw Man. But if there are any broad universal factors that concept might influence, then those will immediately kick in and start being a factor again. We are going to rapid fire list off all of the things that we know Chainsaw Man has swallowed and that we know he could possibly vomit up, keeping in mind that there are certain concepts that either the manga has not mentioned at all because Chainsaw Man has swallowed them and people have forgotten them, or just ideas that Fujimoto has yet to present to the audience. First and foremost, nuclear weapons, which is the most pertinent to the plot of Chainsaw Man Part 2, as the War Devil's plan is to get Chainsaw Man to vomit up the idea of nuclear weapons. Arnolone syndrome, which is a currently unexplained illness, a concept known as SOA, the Mount Hio eruption, AIDS and assumedly HIV, World War II and the Nazis, the original name for the concept of a human-devil hybrid, a sixth sense that all humans used to have, the light of a particular star that would break children's minds, and 4 possible conclusions other than death at the end of living beings' lifespans. Chainsaw Man also ate part of the War Devil, and while war as a concept is still a thing within the universe of Chainsaw Man, there have not been any wars since the First World War. In order to streamline my thoughts on what I think Chainsaw Man could vomit up within the next few chapters, I am going to categorize all the things that I've listed before into either a implausible or a plausible category, keeping in mind that Fujimoto's narrative intention might involve Denji vomiting up multiple different devils instead of just one in order to push the plot forward. It's also worth acknowledging that the devils that Chainsaw Man eats are dead, So it's unlikely that the devil that Chainsaw Man vomits up will become an ally in the fight against the aging devil. More, the purpose of vomiting up a devil like that would be to reintroduce the concept into the existence of the universe. Starting off with nuclear weapons, I've seen a lot of discussion with this chapter, sort of expecting this to be the first devil that Chainsaw Man vomits up, in part because chapter 98, the first chapter of part 2, sets up the idea that if Yoru gets her desires, then Chainsaw Man will eventually vomit up nuclear weapons. However, I don't think it's very likely in this exact moment for a few reasons. My main reason, I would say, is that I fail to see how the nuclear weapon devil would immediately help Denji in this situation. Or rather, I fail to see how the concept of nuclear weapons being brought back because Denji vomits up the devil would immediately help defeat aging. Bringing back a concept by vomiting up a devil wouldn't suddenly restore the population of nuclear weapons, and I just don't see it being likely that Denji would want to use a nuclear weapon against the aging devil if one were to just spontaneously manifest right in front of him after he vomits it up. The only way I could really see this happening is if we assume that nuclear weapons are a child of Yoru, like the gun and tank devil. Because we know Chainsaw Man did eat a part of Yoru, we can assume that if he were to spit out that part, that maybe it would give a power boost to this war devil who is on our side in this fight. I'm going to lump together things like Soa, the Mount Hio eruption, AIDS, Arnalone syndrome, the sixth sense all humans used to have, the light of a particular star that would break children's minds, and the 4 possible conclusions other than death at the end of living beings' lifespans. By nature of the fact that Fujimoto has yet to elaborate on these concepts at large, so we can't really know if the devil / the concept itself that would spawn from the devil being brought back into existence would or wouldn't help Chainsaw Man in his fight against the aging devil. They are wild cards. I'd actually kind of prefer to put them in a third unsure category, but in my head at least, these concepts not having much directly to them leaves a lot of room for Fujimoto to work, making them a little more plausibly approachable in how Fujimoto can write things going forward. That leaves the World War II devil / the concept of World War II as a whole, the Nazi devil / the concept of the Nazis as a whole, and the original name for what hybrids were. I can't see how the supernatural power manifestations of these 3 concepts would assist Chainsaw Man in some form, but that is also taking into account that, like some of the other concepts, Fujimoto has yet to really elaborate on them. So we are very much in a vacuum of information here, and it's hard to say what could happen going forward. I sort of want to say that the most likely option for the useful thing that Chainsaw Man might vomit up will be a devil or set of devils that we haven't heard of entirely. If you want something of a concrete guess from me, I'm willing to throw my weight behind one of the 4 fates for humankind that happen at the end of somebody's lifespan that are not death. In the discussions I've seen online, specifically a thread about the chapter on the Chainsaw Man subreddit, I saw someone suggest that one of these ideas being brought back could passively lower the influence of the aging devil's power simply by nature of something scarier entering the pool and kind of leveling out the scales a little bit. You know, like assuming that aging is now one of the scariest things that leads to death within the universe, reintroducing something that isn't just dying and is scarier would probably make aging pale in comparison somewhat, thusly redirecting the flow / focus of fear that powers up devils away from aging and towards whatever this new thing would be. So the short answer is, I don't know what Chainsaw Man could vomit up that would help against aging. And the long answer is that there are a lot of things we know Chainsaw Man could vomit up to fight back against aging or weaken aging or help against the fight against aging in some form. But from where we are with the information we currently have, none of these things we know that he could vomit up particularly stand out for any one reason as something that will outright happen. If I had to bet money on one of the things I think could be be vomited up by Chainsaw Man, I definitely think one of the 4 possible conclusions other than death is the best bet. Watch it be some shit like the light of a star that would break children's minds, though. I don't know. Fujimoto, can you tell us what the hell that is? I mean, we know. Okay, it's the light of a particular star that would break children's minds, but what does that mean? As curious as I am about what that could directly refer to, I'm even more curious about what ability the devil that manifests from that concept could even have. I really loved this Chainsaw Man chapter, and I especially love the cliffhanger it ends on, because it just leaves us with such an interesting question to theorize about for the next 2 weeks while we wait for the next chapter. There are so many points we can discuss and lead the conversation with, but the question does ultimately come down to, we don't know, we just have to wait until Fujimoto tells us more. That doesn't make this kind of discussion futile, but it does make it incredibly open-ended. And is that not really fun?